Hey, 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 and welcome back to the branding behind Alex Hormozi's $100 million launch. Now, we are finally at the last brand vital, which is branded framework. All right. And we're going to be wrapping it all up soon. So, in this particular launch, Alex Hormozi didn't just write another book. He actually branded his entire framework from attraction to upsells, downsells, and then continuity. He didn't just sell the concepts, he turned them into a branded system that's going to be tied to his name forever. All right. So, point number one, he had a codified mechanism. Again, he had attraction, upsell, downsell, and then continuity. And so he distilled his business into those four levers. And that clarity is what gives your framework power. In the same way that we have our brand vitals, we're able to define them all and list them out for you in order to follow, to better your brand's health. And in the same manner, Alex Hormozi did the same with his mechanism, with his framework. Now, he also applied it across his sales content. So, he actually, as he was going through his slides, he kind of, gave the opportunity for the audience to chime in on the type of sales person that they were, right? So he categorized it as in person with a salesperson, online with a salesperson, in person checkout, and online checkout. And so he allowed the audience to kind of decipher where they kind of fell in. And then he went ahead to, give different scenarios about each type of person. And then that also allowed the audience to fit themselves into his framework. It made it universal for everyone to understand and also feel like, hey, I know where I fall in, or maybe I'm like this, maybe I'm like that, and then in addition to that, he demonstrated it live. So he had his pre-orders where you could pay less now, pay more later. He also had, buy this and get this free, buy X, get Y free. He had continuity through school, his additional platform. And so he used all of these models within the launch in and of itself. That framework, it wasn't just a theory, it was actually lived out. It was breathing, it was alive throughout his entire launch, further proving that the framework actually works. And so again, we get into that proof again throughout the entire process. He just kept proving us over and over and over that, hey, this money models thing actually works. And then he had, again, the brand owned terminology. And so here at the Design Firmacy, we have brand vitals, but he had his $100 million money models. And even with the different guests that he had coming on the stage, they were even using the term money models, money models, money models. And so it further proved, again, proof that they actually used the concepts that were in the book. And so it allowed that name, money models, that term, to become synonymous with Alex Hormozi. And so by naming it, $100 million money models, he ensured that the framework was tied to his brand for as long as possible, forever. And so when people reference it, they reference him essentially because he's the one who brought it out there. Now, you can also do that within your brand, by creating your own terminology. Terminology is not just for the dictionary. As you're building a brand, as you're building your framework, you want people to get accustomed to speaking in the language that you are speaking. In one of the past videos, we talked in the touch points video, we talked about how his chat literally sounded like him, people using certain phrases, talking about certain types of things that maybe most people wouldn't, but the chat sounded like him because those people have been following him, for a certain amount of time. They know his brand. And so they start to sound like him. And in the same manner, when you are building your brand, you have every right to create your own terminology that people can attribute to you and your brand. I mean, that's what allows them to feel like they are a part of the family. So overall, when it comes to frameworks, Your frameworks help to create brand ownership of your ideas. Everything that comes out of your brain is valuable. So treat it as such, because people are not just going to remember your concepts, they're going to remember who taught them, and that's you. And so your frameworks are sticky. People remember them, they turn your abstract knowledge into branded intellectual property that sets you apart. And IP, intellectual property, is so important when you're building a brand because it gives you more value. When people can remember you, when people can learn from you, when people can repeat whatever you teach them, that is value right then and there. So understand that knowledge without structure is going to fade, but a framework makes your ideas more memorable. It makes them teachable. It makes them ownable through IP. And right now, your brand might be teaching concepts, but without a framework, people are not going to connect them back to you. And that part is important. So the Brand Vitals assessment reveals whether your brand has a framework that sticks or if you're leaving ideas on the table for someone else to claim them. And we do not want that. So go ahead and visit mybrandvitals.com and start building the system that sets your brand apart forever. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.